Hello, hello?
Hello?
Hello? Is anyone out there?
It's a mom's night out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mom's Night Out. How's everyone doing?
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah.
Good.
I think today we should dive right in. We wanted to warn all of you, a little trigger warning, that we have a really heavy topic tonight. We are going to be talking about miscarriages and loss, family planning, and it can be a lot. So I think if you're not in the right headspace to listen to this episode, we wanted to give you a warning before we continue.
Yeah.
But I do think we should dive right in because we have a lot of ground to cover. Yeah. Okay. So the stats that I think we all are probably really familiar with is that 1 in 4 women suffer from a miscarriage in their life. And I think there was another stat that said something around 50% of pregnancies result in a loss.
Right. So they might not be known, but 50% of all pregnancies result in a loss.
50% of all pregnancies, which is wild.
What
which
makes
is wild.
us unique as all 3 of us have. So 3 out of 3 in this room.
Yeah.
Have experienced loss.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
with that, we'll get right in. Did you guys always know that you wanted to be a mom?
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, jumped right in.
I'll answer that. I feel like don't most little girls grow up, or a lot of little girls grow up wanting to be a mom, right?
Yeah.
I don't really remember ever having that feeling. I did have half siblings who had lots of children, so I knew I would always be a mom, but I didn't grow up wanting to be a mom.
Yeah.
I always thought I was going to be like the cool aunt for a while.
Oh,
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is funny because I got married pretty young and had kids young.
No, I agree. Like I always knew I wanted to be a mom. I think that it's like the when and with who, right? Like the right person. And so I didn't feel that until my late 20s. Like, okay.
When you met your person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I was like, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say similar. Like I always knew I wanted to be a mom, but it wasn't something I was like obsessing over as
Yeah.
a
Right.
kid or
Yeah.
growing up. It was just like, I knew like one day I'd be married, one day I would have a family. And yeah, I knew like that would make me feel complete.
Right.
Okay, that's a good segue. Do you guys remember after you were married, after you met your person, the moment when you wanted to start your family and start trying to have kids?
I don't know if there was like a moment, but I do know it was definitely a conversation that we had pretty early on in our relationship.
Yeah.
Because it was like, you guys know I'm a planner, and I was not going to go,
What?
shocker, I was not going to go down like this road of like investing a lot of time in a relationship if I knew, we were going to be on different pages of having a family. And
Okay, so
Yeah.
that was like before you got married.
before we got married.
But
yeah.
what about when you were married, all was said and done? Like, did something ever, like a light bulb go off for you or something click and you're like, I need to have babies now?
No.
No, it was like a slow
No,
progression.
I think I had like a checklist in my mind of like wanting to make sure we got all of our travel in, make sure we had a house and like a town we were starting to establish in. So like we bought our house, got everything lined
Yeah.
up, and then I felt like, okay, now I'm ready.
Okay, you're the John in the relationship because it was a little different for me. Literally overnight, I got baby fever.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. Like, I think I was
It
like,
actually does not surprise
I was
me.
on
Yeah.
like a ski trip with my friends. We were partying, having a very good time, a couples trip. And I was like, I need to have a baby tomorrow. And I remember having a conversation with John and he was like, whoa, we live in a 1-bedroom apartment in the city. We don't have space for a baby. So happy to do that. And I'm on board, but we need to find a house first. So he had this checklist. And so once we found our house, we hadn't moved in yet, but he was like, okay, we can start trying now.
Yeah. I think it was the same for us. We had definitely had like buckets that we wanted, like find a house, settle down. But and I think I've shared this before. Right after we got married, I was still in grad school. So I was working full time. I was in grad school nights and weekends. And we were like just sort of open to the idea. Like if it happens, it happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, let's leave it out
Like
there.
pull the goalie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
I love that. That's kind of romantic.
Yeah. Well, this was after we were married and like obviously like it was we were like,
Yeah, but still, I mean, I don't think everyone thinks of it like that. Like, I had a mission and I was on my mission.
So funny how all of us kind of have a very different answer for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, good segue. Did it take you guys like a while? Like, so after you made that decision, did it take you a while to get pregnant?
My first pregnancy, no. We were pregnant pretty quickly, and I know that's an annoying answer, and that's going to make some people mad. But my first pregnancy, no. Like, we started trying. I had just gotten back from a Vegas work trip. I think it took like 2 tries, and we were pregnant. And again, I know that's annoying, but we'll get to some struggles later.
Yeah. So for us, yeah, it was incredibly difficult to get pregnant. So we pulled the goalie, and we were like that for maybe 12 months. And I was like, something's got to be wrong. Like, right? Because we were doing all the things. At that point, you're like, okay. People are like, oh, try this sex position. Try this. Try that. And you're like,
The unsolicited advice.
They're like,
It's like,
stop
thank you.
worrying. Just relax.
yeah.
I'm like, that's not helpful.
Yeah. So we went to, I went to the doctor, and she was like, I think that is a long time. So I think we need to send you to a specialist.
Oh, I love that she had that response, because I feel like it's 50-50 on that. Some people are like, keep trying. It can take a long time.
I think I had shared at another appointment, like, we're like openly like trying. I'm not stressing out about it, but like, I'm tracking my I have an app downloaded. I'm putting everything in, blah, blah, blah. So then it turns out I wasn't ovulating, which is like not surprising. I was under a ton of stress.
Yeah.
So like wasn't ovulating. And so we started, I think this is really common that most people that are trying to conceive and have to go through like an infertility specialist, you have to do like 3 to 4 IUIs. So we went through that process. We did our 3 to 4 IUIs to check that box that they like force you to do. None of it took. And so we did go through the IVF process.
You did?
Yeah.
And did you end up getting pregnant?
I did initially get pregnant. And then I had, I think, what you would consider like a chemical loss. Yeah.
I hate that.
That's
term.
I hate that term too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a loss is a loss, and they almost try to discount it if it's not a certain number of weeks.
Yeah.
But that had to have been devastating after all that work that you put in.
Yeah. No, it was awful. That's an understatement. Awful.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm a middle of the road and like how long it took.
Yeah.
But I was one of those who, in my mind, I always thought like it was going to take a while. So like I was one of those psychos who I was like looking up our insurance coverage and like already from the beginning being like, okay, like I'm going to stay at this certain company because they had really, really great benefits for if you had to go through like the IVF process, because not only is IVF like emotionally hard, you guys, it's a ton of money.
Oh,
I know.
It's like, it's bad from all angles. And I just remember for some reason in my head, I was like, I wanted to prepare myself for the worst. But luckily we didn't have to go down that route, and it took a few months, but yeah, then we were able to get pregnant with my first daughter, Ava.
That's sweet.
I know.
Jenny, did you have coverage for your IVF stuff?
I did.
Okay.
I did have coverage, which was
goodness.
great. Thank goodness. Because I think of all these like same-sex couples that have to go through this process when they want a baby, and like it's wild. It's an investment for them. I mean, it's such a worthwhile investment, but like you think to yourself like, okay, it's I think it's like close to like $10,000.
It's like $10,000 around, I think.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I should mention that I know that there's some wild stuff going on in Alabama, but none of my embryos also took. So like we had this one embryo
So yeah, I was going to ask.
that was like we were really hoping on, and none of my other embryos unfortunately took.
Ugh.
Yeah. So at that point in time, we decided to pause and take a break.
That's so much pressure too.
Yeah. It was a lot of pressure.
Oh my Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about you had a loss during IVF. I want to get into, we talked about it before. 3 out of 3 of us, so all of us have experienced loss in some way, shape, or form. And so I wanted to ask that question. Obviously the answer is yes. We've all suffered losses.
Kind of got that right out of there.
Yeah,
gate,
but
which was
so
good.
like let's share our losses. Does anyone want to go first?
I can go.
You want to
You
go?
guys, I think like 5 people on this planet now. Actually, like less than 5 people. So when I say that, it's very weird. Yeah, like didn't even tell our families. So my youngest daughter, Ellie, had a twin, and like for obviously in utero, she had died around 12 weeks, which is like a really, really, really weird situation. And like I'm a planner, so it was like never a scenario that I like imagined having to deal with. Yeah, it was like I go in, you're in the room, like you know something's wrong because the tech doesn't say anything. And you're looking at the screen and you're like, you know, I've been through several appointments because it's 12 weeks. So like we'd been several times. Like, thank God my husband was with me at that appointment because a few he wasn't able to go to. And that was like, I just remember sitting there and being like, wait, they're not saying anything. They leave. They have you get dressed and like then go to a separate room. And I was like, why isn't anybody saying anything?
Oh my God.
Like it was, that was like a really hard thing.
I'm
so
sorry, Mandy.
It's like a weird, I think this one's like, I think any loss is hard, but I think I struggled with, like, I lost a baby, but then I still had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was like so weird. Like, how do you even process those emotions?
I can't imagine.
You can't. And I didn't want to tell anybody because then I was like, well, people knew I was pregnant, but then I never wanted to share we were pregnant with twins. And then I was like, now if I say I lost a twin, like, how are people going to react?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so you kept it in.
I kept it in.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
a lot. That's a lot to keep
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Well, we've all had loss.
I know.
And like all like different types.
know.
And it's, yeah. And I just remember like trying to get through it. And I'll never forget, I had this sorority sister who was pregnant with twins and she lost both the twins. And I remember she was very vocal about it on social media. And I remember going back and reading her posts like over and over. And like, that's how I got through it. And like this person never knows. And I feel like
you're going to have to reach out
I'm
to
going to
her.
reach out to her. But like her posting about her loss of her twins, like helped me get through that.
Oh my God.
Mandy.
That's
Yeah.
really sweet.
And like, luckily she was able to have a beautiful boy eventually. But I bet she has no idea, like kind of that strength.
Yeah.
Like I saved her posts and I screenshotted them so I could like go
Stop.
back and read them.
Wow.
Because I had nobody to talk to.
That's really powerful.
That was put on me.
No, but I think that's really powerful, right? Like sharing your story can be so powerful and you might not know. Like
Yeah.
she has no idea that she helped
No.
you. And
Like, do you remember when you guys went through it? Like,
I do.
people don't talk about it. And we'll get into like why people don't talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I felt like there was no support.
Yeah. I agree.
I completely agree. And my loss was very different from
Yeah.
yours.
And even like my husband didn't really know like how to handle it or how to like react or like it was even tough on like think about the husbands and the
I
dads.
agree.
Like
Yeah.
and I think it's even harder for them
It's
than it is
hard for them.
the
It's
women.
different for them,
It's
right?
different.
Because it's not something that's a part of their body, right? Like
Right.
this miscarriage is happening inside your body and this loss
And then they
of
see
of
and then they
life.
see you also like just broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember being like, well, I would just love to sit on the couch and like
Do
just
nothing.
do nothing. And I was like, but I have
I'm
like,
guessing you didn't do that.
no. And then I was like, well, I have another, like I have to like take care of, well, I had Ava who was like a year and a half. And then I had like Ellie still inside of me and alive. And I was like, what a fucking mind fuck that was.
Yeah, that is.
Mandy.
Okay. Enough about me.
All right.
Next
Well,
story.
you want me to jump into mine?
Yeah.
Okay. So my loss was very different from yours. I mentioned I got pregnant pretty quickly with my first pregnancy. my second pregnancy, again, I got pregnant quickly. And that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And you guys know this story because I've shared it with you. But I actually had a miscarriage. I think it was eight-ish or 9-ish weeks. And I had a miscarriage while I was away on a work trip in Las Vegas. Like the worst place to be pregnant ever. And looking back, thank you. Shout out to Lori. I call her out a lot. She's like my fairy godmother. But that particular trip, she was like the only person who knew I was pregnant. So I was in Vegas for days, fake drinking, like taking fake shots. And I think looking back, people would be shocked to know that this happened on this trip because I was doing a really good job pretending. And I woke up one morning and there was just blood everywhere in Vegas. And I had a conjoining room with Lori because we thought that would be fun to get ready together. Thank God. I knocked on the room and she opened the door, and I still remember the moment, and I'm sure she does too. She knew. She knew what was wrong. She knew what had happened, and she like whisked me together. All I wanted to do in that moment, which almost seems strange to think about, was to get home. I didn't want to stay in that hotel room. Like I wanted to be out of Las Vegas and home. And so she got me a car, she changed my flights, and she sent me on my way. And so the strangest thing about that to me is like, I think back, like I was miscarrying in an airport, like, and just like no one knew.
It's
right.
so
and,
wild.
You know, like the comedy behind that, I think I shared with you guys, like I was sobbing and in tears the whole time. This is something we can laugh about now.
I know where you're going with the story. That's why I'm laughing.
Oh my gosh. And I met this lovely woman, and, you know, she approached me. I was sitting at the airport bar, like slugging drinks because I was devastated. And she approached me and asked me if I was okay. And, you know, I told her, I blurted out the first thing that I thought of. And I was like, no, my friend died, which like, oh my God, why did I say that? You know, part of it was true, I guess, right? But I said, no, my friend died. And this woman just happened to be a grief counselor who specialized.
Somebody put that person there for you.
It was
like,
wild. And so this poor woman, I lied to her face. Then she tells me her profession, and I full committed, and I couldn't go back. And that woman really saved me. She helped me. She like changed seats with someone, sat with me the whole flight and held my hand. And I got back, and I was numb, and it almost like I blacked it out. Like it didn't really happen.
Yeah.
You know?
No, definitely. That's a good way to explain it. Yeah.
And I know we were friends at this time.
I know.
New friends.
Well, that was like how we also kind of like bonded.
Yeah, we should say that. We bonded over loss, I think.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, like a week later, like in real time, a week later from that, I had also had another loss. Yeah. And I think, so I was at like 9.5 weeks. It was after my daughter Reese, I was pregnant. And somebody in our town knew that who was close to each of us was like, oh, maybe you guys should connect and talk.
I'm really thankful for that person connecting us. Because I felt a lot of comfort knowing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to cry. I felt a lot of comfort knowing that there was someone going through what I was going through.
Yeah.
And I think you were so sweet. And that's funny to think back to. That was like our first like real friendship moment, I think. And we weren't super close yet.
No.
That's so nice though, that like that person connected you and then you could actually talk it through with somebody else. Like that's the thing is like I don't know. It's a tough thing to go through, and if you don't have somebody to talk to, it can really eat away at you. Like you guys just saw my raw emotions because I really have those words have probably only come out of my mouth less than 5 times of telling somebody about Ellie.
Which is wild to me. I'm sorry.
So crazy.
I can't believe that. And now you're, on a podcast sharing with thousands of people.
Yeah.
Because I just think of like what I had to do to this girl, and I would go back and look at her post, and I'm thinking like maybe this will help somebody else through it.
Yeah.
Like you're not alone, and it happens, and then you can go on, and like all of us were able to move on from that loss and like have more children. And
Yeah, I know that's the amazing thing
that's
about
like
all
the
of
hard
our
thing. It's
stories.
like-
Yeah.
although it definitely, I thought, go ask your question. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, did you have, like, aside from me, who was a new friend, did you
Yeah.
have other people that you were talking to?
I didn't have a lot of people to talk to. I had a lot of pregnant friends.
Yeah.
And that was really, really hard. Because, you don't want to put that on them. And I think they can't understand. And I also think we've talked about this before. Unless you've been through this, you really don't know. And you can be as empathetic as you can, but it only goes so far, right? Like, I didn't know what I didn't know until I experienced loss. And I think I cringe at some of the things I must have said to people along the way, and, or people that I wasn't there for enough. And like, maybe I discounted loss. And yeah, so did you have anyone else you talked to?
I had a best friend that had gone through
That's
a
nice.
loss. And so I mean, the unfortunate thing, so like when I was like working through, like, did I want to have a DNC and like things like that, like she was a great resource for me to just be raw with and open and candid with about all of these things. And then just close circle.
Yeah.
I know. Like, I didn't even tell my family. But I think a lot of it was it was such a unique situation. I didn't want to put, like, the worry on my mom in particular.
Yeah.
Like, worrying about me, like, Ellie. And, like, I just didn't want to put the worry on somebody else. So I
think that's kind of how you are.
put it all in.
Yeah.
I know.
Which
It's a lot to bottle up.
It really is a lot. And I don't know about you guys, but the time following my loss were like some of the darkest times in my life, truly. And that might sound dramatic if you haven't been through a loss, but it's such a weird time of, questioning yourself, questioning your faith, if you have a faith, questioning, what's wrong with me, and feeling shame and guilt.
Yeah, and that's also why people don't talk about it.
Right?
It's
And
like, the shame.
the shame.
Which, like,
It's silly. It's
we
not
shouldn't-
your fault.
It's not your fault, and we shouldn't have to be
no.
ashamed of it.
I want to say that.
Yeah.
Nothing that you did caused your miscarriage. Like, right? Like, let's say that again. Nothing you did caused your miscarriage.
Right.
And that was a really hard, I think as women, we want a why, and we want a what happened, and we want to put like something to it, and like you just can't. And that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't explain it. There wasn't a concrete reason why. And I felt like I had failed, and I felt shitty.
Yeah. So how did you cope then with all those feelings that you were going through?
I got a therapist. Truly, the one time my husband and I went to couples therapy was after my miscarriage, because I was in the deepest, darkest part of my life. And, he's such a positive person. And I think as males, they can't really grasp what we're going through. And, he's like, we'll try again and it'll be fine. And I should also mention, after my miscarriage, I didn't get pregnant right away. It took me a little while. And every month that I wasn't pregnant was torture. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I just kept slipping into this deeper, darker hole.
It's so, it sucks hearing.
It was awful. And so I went to therapy. I leaned way into like gardening. Like the weekend I came back from Vegas, I like planted a bunch of flowers to like cope. So I like leaned way into like flowers and gardening. I also got off social media. I don't know about you guys, but I fucking deleted all of my accounts. I stayed off social media. There were pregnancy announcements left and right.
Yeah.
And those were hard to stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about that. That's okay. If you're struggling right now and you can't stand that your best friend is pregnant, or you feel jealous, or you feel mad, or you feel any of these emotions, like that's okay.
Yeah. You have to take time to heal yourself.
right?
Yeah.
And give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Because I felt a lot of guilt and shame for being jealous and for not wanting to talk to certain people and see certain things. And it's totally okay to feel that way. Right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I never coped, never talked about it, never dealt with it.
Maybe
Probably
this
should.
maybe this is your healing journey, Mandy.
Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna feel a lot better after
Yeah,
this.
I know.
Yeah, no, it feels good to like talk about it. I mean, that was one thing. I've talked about my friend Melanie before, but Melanie's always like, I think you need to deal with it. And like, yeah, I do.
I feel like this can be therapeutic for you,
Yeah.
right?
No,
and
just like getting, like even just talking about it, like that's step one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's women out here who have experienced something
absolutely.
like you or who can relate to you. And again, this is why we want to have this episode. Like sharing your stories is so powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why we're here. That's why we have this podcast. And I feel like this is probably our deepest episode.
Yeah.
But we felt like we were waiting and we felt like it was important.
Yeah. How did you cope?
How'd
Jen?
you cope?
I don't know. I feel like I cried a lot. I was very angry.
Anger's, that's one we haven't talked about. Anger.
Yeah, I was very angry. Probably all the things that you've already said. I think the one thing I probably did, well, I know that I did, was I drank a lot of wine, and I really leaned on Mike to like, which maybe was unfair for reasons you were mentioning earlier. Like he was also grieving his own loss, and probably felt. Actually, I know this for a fact. He felt like really conflicted on like expressing his own feelings to me and keeping them hidden from me because he didn't want to add to my plate. But like, yeah, I needed him. Yeah, extra.
I love that you were able to lean on him. And I do think that's a unique, like an interesting perspective that he didn't want to like add more to your plate. So he was not maybe showing emotion.
Yeah.
And maybe you thought that meant he didn't care or he wasn't as sad.
Like he was like emotional in the moment, like the initial few moments of days, right? But then following that, when I think that's when he was like, you know, the loss had like settled in. That's when he like was like, okay, I need to like just be there for John and whatever, however that meant. So yeah. Anyway, that was sort of how I coped. And
the fun part of this story is Jen and I ended up, and then it was all around the same time as Mandy was dealing with this too. We all have kids that are within months of each other, right? So Eliana is 3 months older than Leo and 4 months older than Marin. I mean, not even. Marin and Leo are 12 days apart.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting pregnant again.
Yeah.
Like within days of each other, which is wild. And guys, we were not as I want everyone to know, we were not in this little friend group yet.
No, we were like going to kids' birthday parties, and we were like,
and seeing each other. I was like, oh my God, I hope these people will be friends with me.
Well, I think the wildest thing is about how you kind of knew
I know
from a conversation that I was having with the daycare director of when I needed to reserve
You
2 spots. And then it was funny because one spot opened up because I didn't need the spot.
It opened up for Leo. And Leo and Eliana ended up being like
best of friends
and inseparable, which is like,
so
it's so weird how the universe works.
in the weirdest of ways.
It really is. So I feel like
really
that's
does.
like a neat story that we really didn't talk about sharing, but I think it makes sense. And all 3 of our kids who are, like 4.5 are really close.
Can't believe they're already 4.5.
Right?
Like, wow.
I know, they're almost 5 and they're friends, and it's just like, it's funny. It's like, did they know each other somewhere else? Like, and
they most certainly did. Yeah.
Okay. What I want to ask, what is like the craziest thing that someone ever said to you after your loss? Mandy, we know your answer because maybe people didn't know, but maybe there was a doctor or something, or I don't know. Was there something nuts that someone said to you when you were going through your hard time that you couldn't believe?
I can't like think of anything that's crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Everyone was pretty good.
Yeah. No.
I did have a person who, you know, had like very analytical person who I love dearly, who was like, maybe it happened because of this. And like, you know, when you're going through that, first of all, it didn't happen because of anything that anyone did. And that was really hard to hear. And I was very angry, but, you know, we've since talked through it and it ended up being a learning experience for both of us. But yeah, I think, you know, or people would be like, are you, you know, not a ton of people knew about my miscarriage, but then people would be like, are you trying again? I was like, dude, can I have a second? Obviously I'm trying again.
Yeah.
But can I have a second?
Yeah.
That brings me to like a question of like, did your loss scare you into having more kids or like wanting to try again?
Yeah. I think the IVF, the failed IVF, we'll call it, that scared the shit out of me. Truly.
Really?
Yeah. That rattled me to my core. Pretty bad. And I was like, I remember saying to Mike, I was like, I was 2 months, maybe 3 months away from completing graduate school. And I was like, I don't want this. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I mean, I still want kids, but like, I'm not going through this again anytime soon. Like it took everything out of me. And that's why my heart is just like for these women who muster up the courage to go through it another time, another round with the fucking needles. Sorry, I'm going to swear. And it just, the hormones, and it is a lot. It's a lot.
I can't even imagine.
So yeah, I think the second miscarriage, I was angry, but I also was like, I got back up and I was like, we can do this again. Yeah. How about you guys?
I was definitely more aware. I think I was very naive before my loss, right? Like I said that in thinking like, oh, like you try your whole life growing up not to get pregnant, right? Like everyone's like, don't get pregnant. And it's like, it's actually difficult to get pregnant. And there's only a certain number of days a month that you can get pregnant. And a lot goes into that. But so I think I was scared in the fact that I hadn't realized how much could go wrong. And I was just so naive in my first pregnancy, like, oh, I'm pregnant. Everything's great. And then that loss devastated me. And I was like, I was nervous the whole rest of my second pregnancy.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, even past stuff, I was like, well, you never know.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
Yeah. I think it definitely played a toll on me because like I had to go through the rest of that pregnancy. So
yeah,
2 trimesters and every appointment having to go in. And then it was only a couple weeks before I could like start to feel Ellie moving. And then I was like, okay, that was like a really big moment. Cause I was like, okay,
she's there.
Like
I got
she's
her.
there.
Yeah.
I can like make sure she's okay. But like being pregnant, like growing a baby, childbirth, like it is terrifying. Like so much can go wrong. And yeah, it's, that definitely I think played into, I mean, I always saw myself with 2 kids. My husband really wants more, but, yeah, I could never deal with that again. Yeah. I don't think so.
So that kind of like that completed your family for
Not
you.
completed my family. Ellie has enough personality.
You know what? I love that about her. She really does.
Yeah, she definitely is the big personality, and it's great, and it's a crazy story of how she got here.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Next question.
Okay, with that, is there a lesson or a takeaway that you want to share with women listening? You know, women who might want to start a family, women who know someone who's had a loss, women that have gone through a loss, women that are trying to get pregnant right now and having a hard time. Is there a takeaway that your loss left you with that you want to pass on tonight?
I think for me, the one thing that I want people to hear is like, I see you, like I am you. I think like I've been there. I've walked in your shoes. So like, if you need somebody, I know there are so many people that are probably listening that don't know who I am, but like reach out to me. I actually am like a really like loving person, and I will listen and I will provide guidance, and like I want people to know that about this podcast and this group of women. I think that we truly are like that and live that, and I also think, ironically, I've mentioned Mike a few times tonight, but men have been reaching out to Mike about their losses that they've gone through. He's had two memorable ones, unfortunately, that stick out in my mind in last year. And I just think that, and they've come back several times to him to talk about, you know, different things. And I just think that that is such an important thing for us to have as other people that we can talk to about it, about what we're going through.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Yes. I love that so much. And like, don't feel bad reaching out. And I think to your point, like you are these women and I am these women and you are these women. Like we've been there and look at, we went on and we had families and we were able to have these families and looking from the outside looking in, you might never know. You might have looked at us and said, look at, they have this beautiful family and they don't know. And I love that message.
Yeah.
We've been there before. I think on that note, my takeaway was I couldn't understand my loss when it was happening. And I am grateful for it in this weird way now. I know that's going to sound weird to some people, but it taught me so much and it gave me this understanding for women that have been through this. And I know there's women who have struggled much more than I have. So like, I'm grateful for that knowledge. I couldn't have understood it until I met my rainbow baby, right? So Leo is my rainbow baby. And like nothing made sense until the second I held him in my arms. And it was like in that moment, like everything made sense. Like I was like, oh, I get why I had to suffer to have you. And that might sound weird to some people, but I'm grateful for the knowledge and the understanding of loss. And I'm grateful for the rainbow baby that I was able to have.
Just over here tearing up as you talk through it. I'm not a crier, but a lot of tears tonight, guys. No, I think mine is like grief is going to look different for everybody. And I think it's just an awful thing that as a society, we don't talk about this more. And like, I hope that starts to change. Like, I don't get why it's such a taboo topic. And then also why I know there are some states now that allow you time off for a miscarriage or loss or whatever it may be. And like, why is that not the norm? Like, why can we not
I agree.
have that as a society? Like, it's insane.
I agree. You probably went into work like the next Monday, like nothing happened, or the next day even, like nothing happened.
I was like a shell of a person, but
Totally.
you could, and like, I wasn't about to be, and like, this is on me too. Like but I wasn't going to be like, hey guys, just so you know, like I just lost a baby, but here I am.
Yeah.
But I think people would maybe be more receptive to that.
If
But
there was a policy for it, like how about like grief and loss period or miscarriage, like time off, like there's maternity leave. We're not even going to get into that.
No, we're not. That's a whole new topic.
Yeah. But like, you know, and maybe leaders listening should hear us and like, listen guys, like you have women who are dealing with this and you don't even know it. And I think to like trickle down the top down, like if I'm ever in that position, I want women to know like, hey, you don't have to say a word. Like, here's a code word, or like you can just say something happened and I need some time. Like we need, to your point, we need to be more supportive of women because it's a major, major thing mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's all of the above, and to be expected to just carry on like nothing happened is insane. Before we end tonight, I know we all had talked about, we really wanted to acknowledge the women who might be listening, who are experiencing loss or who might have just gone through loss, or women who aren't able to get pregnant, right? Because we see you too. Women who, you know, struggled to get pregnant. All the women who may not think of themselves as mothers, but you're mothers in other way, right? Or like women who are waiting for their family because they haven't found their partner yet. Like we see you, we acknowledge you, and we're here. And we want you to know that. And we felt like that was an important message.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's so important.
Reach out to us.
Reach out to us. We're here. 3 out of 3. I mean, that's wild.
It is, and it's so many listening.
Right? And so we hope that you guys will reach out and share if you feel compelled. If you don't, we get it. That's okay too. But thanks for going deep with us, and thanks for listening.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.